Well, guys, I got to run. It was fun, and I can't wait to listen to this episode now.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you were going to do it anyway, right?
I was, yeah. I was actually calling to see when the next Kansas QB was coming out.
Yeah, we've been a little tardy.
Now I know.
Are you ready, big dog?
I'm ready.
Did I even tell you what we're doing?
Nope.
Welcome to Kansas QB, a podcast about growing up in rural Kansas, hosted by two former high school quarterbacks. And now, here are your manly hosts, Steve Jewell and Tyler Martin.
Yeehaw!
Ride those cowboys.
Wait,
No,
right?
ride.
Growing up in the cornfields of the Sunflower State, we were inseparable, brothers from different mothers who didn't happen to be sisters. No, decades later, he's in Utah and I'm in Missouri, but we'll always have Kansas and we'll always be the QB. Howdy, folks, and welcome to the show. I'm Steve. He's not Tyler, but he's our friend Matt. Wow, that was really loud. There you go. That's a little more subdued. And today's episode is entitled 90s Video Games. Hey, Matt, thanks for bailing us out. As everyone who follows the show knows, Tyler and I have not recorded a podcast in nearly a week, and we would have continued to not record until Friday, which is when we're going to hopefully get everything recorded for an episode Friday, and then also potentially for the next week. We're going to try to knock 3 out. So it's our friend Matt to save the day.
Well, I'm happy to join. I'm happy to talk about one of my favorite hobbies. Clearly, I'm not as good at Tyler as at the intro, but we'll make do.
Or are you secretly genius? Oh, man. You might think, well, why don't they just cut that out? Why don't they just start over? Because number one, it was hilarious.
No.
And number
No.
two, who has time? Who has time to do a podcast twice? I mean, I never have made you record a podcast twice before.
No, never.
So why are Tyler and I so busy, Matt? You might be asking yourself. And the listeners at home might be asking themselves. Why are we doing such a bad job getting things recorded? Well, he has spring ball. As everyone knows, he's a football coach. And football just doesn't happen in the fall. It happens all year round. And he's right now in the middle of spring ball. And I just had a wedding this Saturday. So,
Congratulations. I didn't know you were like in that kind of a religion now. I had no idea.
No, I didn't get married, and yes, I'm proud of myself for not inserting a Utah joke there, since you are from Utah. But I film weddings, Matt. I don't know if you knew this, but I have a media company. I don't just do podcasts. I do other things that actually, make more money. So everything from corporate videos, interactive videos, photography, graphic design, though obviously not on the same level as the wonderful Matthew Pelly. Had a wedding, great bride, Matt. It's some people don't want to do weddings because they don't want to have to deal with, bridezillas and overbearing moms. And I've been so fortunate. That has almost never happened to me. And this past Saturday, I had two of the most wonderful human beings that you could possibly have to do a wedding for. And I actually enjoyed myself. Like usually weddings are kind of stressful, but this one was actually a lot of fun. But the bad downside, Matt, was that then I had to, be there all day, obviously. And then I had to edit to kick out their teaser, and that's just a lot of work. And so I basically just said, I don't have time to do the podcast, but we're here. You're saving the day, Matt, and it's gonna be great.
Steve, if I wanted to use you for a wedding, how would I reach you?
That is not in the script, ladies and gentlemen. Why? You could go. You could send me an email at steve@stevejewell.com. Though, Matt, I must say I'm doing fewer weddings this year intentionally because my little brother, with his interactive video software that he's developed, I think the corporate route is a little easier to make money and a little less stress. And so I've filled my calendar with that this year. But I'm still doing some weddings. As a matter of fact, I just talked to a mother of the bride. And so, but I'm probably only going to do about 5 to 8 weddings this season, as opposed to as many as I can get my hands on, like in the past. So
that's fair. That's fair.
That's cool. Fair. Well, Broken News is brought to you today by our friend Matt, that guy, Mike Hubble, Carmen of Midway, my man Jonah, Mark and Nancy, Darren Football, and poor guy Dave. If you'd like to be a friend of the show, you head on over to www.patreon.com YouTube.com/Kansas QB. And of course, we would love for you to subscribe to the Jewel Media LLC YouTube channel, as well as download the show on your favorite podcasting platform.
Broken news.
Well, as we like to say, if it ain't broken, it ain't news. Breaking news is for tryhards, and we no longer have the stamina for that kind of effort. So we take stories that have already been broken and share them with the folks at home. Have you heard about this, Matt? According to the website The Guardian, there are 15 video games that ruled the 90s.
I saw the list. Mm-hmm. I am adamantly opposed to the list. I'm going to just say that right now, get it out in the open. I was looking down the list. It's got a few, but clearly this is biased towards Nintendo owners. I saw some classics.
Which we were.
I only owned original Nintendo systems, so I think today, and for this list, I think it's leaving out some massive hits, 90s hits from video games on the PC, in particular, which we might talk about. Myst, the greatest selling video game until
hang on
10 years ago.
Hang on to it, Matt. Hang on to that. I'm going to ask you about that at the end, but you are absolutely right. And I know it's the same thing. It was the PC that seemed to be slided in this list. But right now, let's just take a look at the list and see what it has to say.
Let's see what it's got.
So, Matt, if you want to jump in with your memories of some of these games, obviously we didn't talk about this ahead of time. So I have no idea how many of these you played, though I know some of them that you did probably play. And so we'll start. So again, only games from the 90s. This doesn't count anything in the 2000s. Doesn't count anything before that. So Tecmo Bowl, not included. Not going to be included in this list.
Nope, not included.
Tecmo Super Bowl was eligible for this list, and it's not on the list, folks.
I'm sorry, Tyler. I'm sorry.
Table. That was for Tyler. That was for Tyler and for me. But beginning with number 15, Matt. Monkey Island 2. LeChuck's
Fantastic game. I'm glad that they included one point-and-click adventure game, but I've got some on my list that I would have included above that. The original Monkey Island, for one. But that might have been in 89. So
yeah, 91 is when this one came out. Did you play Monkey Island 2?
I went back and played it. I did not play it when it first released. I played it a few years later. So I probably played it in like 98 or something like that. I didn't play it when it was first released. As I did with most games, I played them years after they were released.
Well, good.
True to this day.
That still qualifies you to be an expert for this list. All right, so but it was a fun game. It was a puzzle game. I didn't know anything about it.
It's what's called a point-and-click adventure. So it tells a story, and then you solve puzzles by finding objects and then combining them to make solutions.
Oh, that sounds incredibly boring. Number 14 on the list, Gran Turismo.
Played it a little bit. Not a racing guy.
Yeah, and I would have to say I shouldn't call myself a racing guy because I'm probably not, but Mario Kart. So that one obviously is.
Of course, me too, as well.
Yeah, so there's that. Also, I'm trying to think of other racing games that we used to play. For me, Matt, they became harder to play as they stopped being split screen. You know, if I can't race against you, hey, listen, Excite Bike, that wasn't split screen and it was fine. You know, but it was multiplayer. And as they became more and more single player, I became less and less interested. So couldn't agree with you more. How about this one? Fallout 2. Fallout was a pretty big franchise. Still is. Still is. Yeah, I played this after the fact, not when it was first released. It is a very hard game. It is a beautiful game. It has some great humor, but man, is it a hard game. I tried to get into Fallout with Fallout, I don't know, maybe 4? Or probably 3 or 4, yeah. Something like that. It was an older Xbox one that my little brother had, and he let me borrow it. And I couldn't figure it out. I mean, I could have if I had taken the time. But I didn't have a whole lot of time when I first pulled it out of the box. And I opened it up, and I was like, okay, I don't really understand what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, most games start with, well, here's how you look left, like Halo. Here's how you look right, you know? And you kind of build your way into it, right? Skyrim, that's one of my favorite games of all time. That one, you're on the wagon, you're talking to the Stormcloak guy, you're looking around, and it kind of helps you understand kind of what to do. It didn't have that with the Fallout game, and so all I saw was like a barren wasteland, and I didn't, like, the whole thing didn't really click with me, but you're telling me it's actually pretty good. I think it's pretty good if you like a certain art style and social critique that can be built into these video games. Fallout 3 was one of my favorite games. Well, as folks know from maybe season 1 of this podcast, not a fan of social critique in my video games. It could be in there, Matt. Put in your social critique all you want. Just be okay with me ignoring the message and just getting to the,
Fair.
the point of the game. Yeah. All right. So that's number 13. Number 12, Resident Evil. Speaking of a game that has some blood and guts to it, right? Did you ever play any of the Resident Evil games?
I did play it again later. Very scary for the time. But I played Alone in the Dark. That came out in the 90s. That kind of was a precursor to this, and so that's the one I remember.
Oh, okay. So there's a game called Alone in the Dark.
Yes.
Okay, because when you said that, I was thinking you played this game alone and in the dark, and that's why it was so scary.
Also, the appropriate way to play Resident Evil games, but
yeah. See, and I knew that there were movies, and I did see at least part of several of the movies, but it was originally a video game. And
yeah, and again, this is a console game. I'm more of a PC guy, so I didn't play it till later when it was released for PC.
For PC, so you get on like Steam and like download a bunch of games. Is that what you do?
Yep, or Grand Old Games, GOG.com. That's another place to find these old games. I'm not getting paid for that. I wish I was.
Yeah, well, yeah, Kansas QB is gonna make money off of that. Hey, but seriously though, Matt, some of the games we used to play. We'll take a little break here. We're getting into things we remember, but Tyler's not here. We can do whatever we want, right? There's no rules.
Yeah, we can skip through this list because I want to talk about the stuff we remember. I will say on this list, there's some good games in here, but Final Fantasy VII is incredible. Quake revolutionized the gameplay.
But don't you dare do the top two, because I like this list because of the top two. So
I'm going to save those too, but number 3 is my favorite on this list, which is Half-Life, which if you never played, like it totally changed the way first-person shooters were played. It actually puts story into first-person shooters, which before that did not exist.
Okay, so we'll get there. 11's Mario Kart, obviously fantastic.
Wonderful, yeah.
I played the Wii version, but it had to start somewhere. Street Fighter 2, I had friends that were totally into that.
Yep. I played that in the arcade at the Ozarks, and the first time I beat it was with Blanca. I remember vividly, with lots of quarters.
Never played it. I did play Tony Hawk's Underground, which is a later version of number 9 on this list. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came out in 1999, so it would have a graphics advantage on the rest of the games. Tony Hawk franchise, kind of a big deal. Did you ever play any soccer games?
Nope, only with buddies, and I just never could get into it. Didn't know the rules well enough because, as we've established, I never learned soccer in PE because my PE teacher did not like soccer.
No, football coach, 100%, for sure. Now, I have played FIFA. I do like it. I feel like if I was a younger man that had time to play video games, I'd probably enjoy it. But Sensible World of Soccer, number 8, I don't know. Maybe it was good. Maybe it's not. Number 7's kind of a big franchise, Sonic the Hedgehog. They're still making movies about this. That actually aren't too bad. So did you play Sonic? Did you play the Sega at all?
I did, mostly with, again, friends and cousins, but we never owned the Sega system, so just never got into it.
I feel like the Sega Game Gear is probably where I played Sonic. And when I borrowed, the Schultzes had a Game Gear, right?
The Schultzes, Mark Schultz. I used to play it occasionally on the bus driving to school.
Aha! And you'd look over his shoulder, and it felt like you were playing, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Fist of Fury, yeah.
Number 6, Pokemon. You a Pokemon guy?
No, I still have yet to play it. I know a lot of the Pokemon just because, when you're around youth, you learn that, but I never played it.
Is it like Final Fantasy, like a turn-based thing, or what? Is it a point and click?
Yes, it's kind of a JRPG where you collect. I've played other games similar where you collect creatures, you level them up, and then you battle against other creatures.
And folks at home, you got to appreciate this. If Tyler was on here right now, he'd be saying, "This is the dumbest conversation ever talking about Pokemon." So that's why I thought, well, if we can't get Tyler, well, this would be the only time we could talk about some of these games because. He would do his best to soldier through, but he would be completely bored by this topic. Number 5,
he might know Pokemon. We don't know. Quake, amazing, revolutionized first 3D graphics on the sprites who you're competing against.
Okay,
this is awesome.
But isn't that the sequel to Doom?
No, but it was made also by id.
So it was kind of the next iteration of the technology.
Narratively, it's not in the same universe.
Okay, because I remember Doom. I don't think my dad knew that I played it, but so hopefully he doesn't listen to this particular podcast. But I think it was one of those. Oh, I'm getting a phone call here. Hang on.
Is it your car?
It's not hurt anything. Let's find out. Hang on, let me get him on the speaker here. Hello, Kevin Jewell, and welcome to the Kansas QB podcast. On with Matthew Pally. Do you have anything any news about my truck?
I do not.
In case you couldn't hear that, folks, he said
And
he
I'm
does not.
sorry to interrupt. Matt, I am so sorry.
No,
It's great to talk to you, Kevin.
Yeah, you called the right time, though, Kev. Quick question. Do you remember
Okay,
playing Doom?
Great.
Did you play Doom
Uh,
on the computer?
maybe once or twice.
Because I
was terrible
borrowed
at
it, or
So
I borrowed
no.
it from somebody, I think. Maybe from Matt. He used to give me those discs whenever he got them in the mail.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes,
Demo
I do
discs.
recall that. Yes. That was fun. I did like whenever you let me play the games that you borrowed from Matt.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that was the first-person shooter I ever played. Like, I had never seen a first-person shooter before. And I remember just kind of being weirded out by the whole thing, but thinking it was cool, but then it was really scary.
Yeah.
With
Yes.
the flickering lights and the
Yeah.
zombie folks.
Yes.
Um,
I don't think I liked it very much because I died very quickly. So.
Yep.
Kev, do you have time to stick around?
Yeah, I'm driving home from work.
All right,
so-
perfect. All right, we just gained
All
another
right.
guest. Okay, so number 4 on the list, Matt, is Final Fantasy VII.
Final
I did
Fantasy
not play
VII.
Final Fantasy.
I blasted through this. It would have been it was later. It would have been my senior year when I had my wisdom teeth took out.
Mm-hmm.
I just, my 3 days of recovery, I just played Final Fantasy VII.
Great. You can't beat that. How about
was
Half-Life?
awesome.
Talk about Half-Life. I never played it. Kevin
yeah.
never played it. We have no idea. What was Half-Life?
So Half-Life, before Half-Life, you've got Doom, Quake, in which you are just dropped into a level, you go pick up key cards, unlock doors, and shoot. The closest thing to a storyline we ever had at that time period was Dark Forces, which was in the Star Wars universe, using...
And can I just stop and say that was one thing missing on this list? There's no Star Wars. I mean, they had LucasArts
Yeah.
earlier with
which,
Monkey Island.
I've got a list later.
Okay, good. Excellent.
So,
but Dark Force is fantastic. And aren't they coming out with
so
another one? I thought I'd heard they were coming out with another, like, Dark
No,
Forces.
it's the other one. It's Jedi Knight Fallen Order is the new, right? So no.
Okay. All right. I'm looking forward to that. All right, continue. I interrupted you.
Yeah, so Dark Forces was the closest with the storyline, but again, it just did it in between
Cutscenes.
the levels, and the levels just looked like Star Wars. Half-Life actually embedded the character into the story, so narrative elements would happen while you were playing it. The story would unfold. There were no cutscenes. Your character didn't even talk, but it told this great story of an alien invasion at a desert research facility, and government comes in to try to cover it up. It's this wonderful story that I remember to this day, and the soundtrack was incredible. It revolutionized video games and launched a little company called Valve, which then created Steam.
We come full circle. All right, this next one, Kevin, you have some familiarity with. This was more my game, but number 2 on this list, in my mind, one of the greatest all-time video games. Like, I would put this on my top 5. Definitely top 10, but probably top 5. And that is The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. When I was a senior, when Kevin was a freshman in college, I bought a $5 Nintendo 64 at the Lamoni Salvation Army. And this is one of the games that I got. And I played this. This one basically got me through college and also my senior year. Kevin, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. Did you also love this video game?
Yes. So I may be wrong, but didn't we first play this at Aunt Diane's house?
That is wrong.
Did she have
That
this
is
game?
wrong.
That was a different
That was
Zelda
Majora's
game?
Mask, but it was very similar. So I could see why you would get those confused. Yeah.
Yes. All I know is that you were very good at that game, and I enjoyed watching you play. And I did not play that one nearly as much, but the Nintendo 64, it was fun to watch you play that, and then the Mario 64 as well, which I felt were similar, but again, probably showing how little I know about video games.
You know, they are very similar in the way that, like, it's a very similar in genre, right? They're obviously very different. You know, one's kind of a jumpy, hoppy puzzle solver. But Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, what I loved so much about it was Matt, it was in fantasy. Like, it was like in the fantasy world, which I love those, obviously, being a Lord of the Rings fan, and, you know, I still will read fantasy novels. Like, I like that genre, so I love that about it. It had the time travel aspect to it, obviously. I decided I was going to beat it my freshman year in college, Matt, without looking at a single guide, not looking on the internet, not reading anything. And so I did. I beat the whole thing without any kind of help. But the one downside, Matt, was that I didn't realize until I was almost done that I could have had Epona, the horse, at just about any time. And it wasn't until I was almost done with the entire game that I finally got the horse. So I would just run across this huge map. Like, I would doze off with the stick, like, forward, like this, and then I'd wake up and I'd be, like, running up against a cliffside, you know. But did you like Legend of Zelda, Matt?
I didn't play this one much, other than watching people. The Zelda game that I remember most is Kyle Miller had the Game Boy, only Game Boy, and he had Link's Awakening, and we would like take turns as a class, like playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I still, to this day, I think we played that and beat the entire thing as a class practically.
So you would pick that Game Boy, Link's Awakening, or Game Boy, not Game Boy, over the original Zelda on the Nintendo, which I know you had or
Yes.
you borrowed because I played it at your house.
My cousin Brad Macaulay had it, and I recall borrowing it from him. So
Brad for the win. All right, so this last one, we're going to let Kevin announce it. Kevin, what do you think the number one game of the night? You don't have the list in front of you. Number one game of the 90s was, according to this list, I'll give you a hint. You've already mentioned it.
Mario 64?
Mario 64, ladies and gentlemen. Could not agree more. That was such a great game. It was revolutionary. I remember the first time I played it, and I was just like, they can do this with video games? Like, what's next? AI taking over the world? Little did I know that wasn't going to happen until 2023. But yeah, love this game. Matt, any thoughts on Super Mario 64 before we get to things we remember?
It was kind of this, now everybody imitates it as platformers, but it was revolutionary at the time.
The things we remember.
We're getting older and we've already forgotten more than we ever knew, but some memories still cling to our brain parts, like my whale to Plankton when playing Odell Down Under in Mrs. Pally's 5th grade room. This list includes memories from our time growing up in Kansas. Let's see just how well we can remember. In the Broken News segment, we learned that there were some memorable games in the 90s. Matt, what are some games left off of this list? And why do they form an important part of our childhood? Or what are games that maybe aren't top 15, but just were important to us growing up in the 90s in a small town? Kevin, first of all, before Matt talks, Kevin, how much time you got?
I got about 7 or 8 minutes.
Okay, because I want to get your thoughts on some things, and I want to make sure you don't run out of time. But we're going to start with Matt. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay. So we'll come back. We'll come back to games in school. I'm just gonna say the ones that I think were left off of that list. So big games. TIE Fighter.
Yes.
Which was the space sim. It was incredible. It had so many levels, hundreds of ships in Star Wars universe. It's easily one of the top games of all time.
Did that come before X-Wing versus TIE Fighter?
So it was X-Wing, then TIE Fighter, then X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, then X-Wing Alliance. So TIE Fighter is definitely one of those games. And that leads me to my next ones that I would leave off, which is Wing Commander 3 and 4. Wing Commander 4 was the one I played first. And it stars Mark Hamill, who played Luke Skywalker in Star Wars. It stars John Rhys Davies, who was and Malcolm McDowell. It has a star-studded cast with full motion video in between. And the actual gameplay was incredible. So Wing Commander 4 has a special place in my heart as my favorite game of all time. Not as good as TIE Fighter. TIE Fighter was the better game, but Wing Commander 4 was definitely mine. Also, big fan of point-and-click adventure games. They left off Myst, the best-selling video game of all time, until just about 5 or 6 years ago. The King's Quest series, King's Quest 5 and 6 were two of my favorite games, point-and-click adventure games, just like Monkey Island. And I could go on. Pretty much all the Star Wars games that were left off.
Yeah, that was sad. And Kevin, my brother Kevin, you've heard of him. We played X-Wing versus TIE Fighter quite a bit, didn't we, Kev?
Yes, that was a fun game.
And I always flew the X-Wing. For number one, it was nice to have shields. But number two, that's what Luke flew. But that wasn't your favorite ship, was it, Kev?
No, I liked the ones that were dropping the bigger bombs. That was usually, I think, the ones I went with.
Y-Wings and B-Wings, right?
B-Wings.
Yes, although the A-Wing was fun because it was fast. I remember liking that one as well.
I'm so proud of you, bro. I love you more now than I did yesterday because you remembered the word A-Wing. I'm proud of you, man. I know you like Star Wars, but you didn't like it as much as I did. So
I definitely did not like it as much as you and Brian, but I have watched everything that you've watched. I haven't read everything that you've read, but I have watched everything that you've watched, I think, from the Star Wars universe. So
very good. So
not a slouch.
Go ahead.
Fun cheat on X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Because we live so far away from any CD store, I didn't have the soundtrack, but the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter video game, you could pop that into a CD player and listen to the Star Wars soundtrack.
I forgot that.
And so I did that all the time while reading the novels.
Now, Matt, I was plugging my computer in while you were, which was out of battery, while you were talking. So you may have already said this. I thought also that RTS was underrepresented. Age of Empires should have been in there, or Civilization.
Absolutely,
Like,
absolutely. And StarCraft. StarCraft 2 came out at the end of the 90s, or StarCraft 1 came out at the end of the 90s, 98 or something like that.
I think so.
Warcraft came out, right? So people
that's kind of a big game.
World of Warcraft,
now,
there was
it wasn't
Warcraft,
originally
right?
online. Like that's something that came later,
Right.
but it was like a playable game, just like StarCraft with the story.
It was awesome. It was so great, hilarious, fun, and it built that World of Warcraft that we know that everybody's addicted to nowadays.
Yeah.
Started as a real-time strategy game.
Well, and I'm interested, Matt, in knowing this. Just a little time out here. You know, sometimes my older brother won't join us, but my little brother and I, we play StarCraft 2 and Age of Empire 4. So if those are some of the games that you play now with on Steam or whatever, you let us know. We'll
I do play Age of Empires 4 occasionally. I'm terrible at it.
Oh, that's great.
But man, it scratches the itch. So
my little brother
good.
Brian is really good. So he's fantastic.
Well, he's
but
not
I'm really
invited
bad.
then.
Yeah. So no, we play together against the AI because my son Jackson plays too. So.
Cool.
Anyway,
Oh,
that's just a little
awesome.
invite. Just
Awesome.
throwing that out there. Yeah, all right. So now I thought it'd be fun. Actually, you had the same idea. And this is what I wanted to get Kevin's thoughts on before he's gone. So, Kev, we're going to turn the floor over to you. But I know Matt has a list, and now I have a list. And so we're going to see if Matt and I need to add anything to Kevin's list. Kevin, what are some games that you remember from our time growing up at Midway, specifically in teacher rooms, that were played in different grades on these old computers? And again, you didn't even know you were going to be on the show today, so you haven't prepared for this. But what are some games that you remember growing up at Midway?
So the games that I remember specifically include, and I picked up a straggler here.
That's all right. Keep going,
buddy. Yes. Oregon Trail.
Oregon Trail, yeah.
Reader Rabbit is going way back, like the old floppy disk. You remember that?
I'd forgotten that one.
Yes, that was a big deal because our mom was obviously the kindergarten teacher, so we got to play that one probably the first kindergarten through second grade or something like that. Gosh, there was another game we played
in Mom's room.
Miss Bevis's class. No,
Miss Bevis's room.
Class.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about. Matt, do you remember it?
It wasn't X-wing. It wasn't X-wing versus TIE Fighter quality. But it was one of the first ones that I ever played where you're actually flying around, which was always fun.
Do you remember this, Matt?
And I was not nearly as good at it as Nathan Bevis was.
It wasn't Battlezone, was it?
Honestly.
No, I don't remember what it was called, but I know exactly what he's talking about. It was basically 3D Asteroids. The game Asteroids, like in 3 dimensions, you're flying forward, and you're shooting. Aliens are coming kind of towards you, and there's rocks you have to blast with your lasers, and then you like kind of fly through a tunnel the whole time. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I don't recall the name of that.
I don't either, but that's a good call. All right, what else? Hey, you missed one from Mom's class. I'm gonna get you on later, and you're gonna be like, you're gonna slap yourself.
Yeah, you're.
But keep going. What else you got? Is that it?
Man, that might be the end of my list.
Oh, wah. Let me get a sounder for that.
My memory is not what it used to be. Kind of like Darren. I listened to your last podcast with the fake champs. I definitely was feeling them as far as not remembering things well.
Well, I don't. That's why I have to talk to Tyler and Matt because they think of things that I never remember.
And to be clear, as the kids of a teacher, right, the reason we probably don't remember a lot of what these games are is most of them were ordered from the Scholastic book order form, and there was always that page on the back that was like education video games that we played, but nobody else remembers.
Yeah, and we had more time, didn't we, after school? All right, Kevin, we're going to let Matt go last. Right. But, Kevin, the one that you missed was Number Munchers.
Yes, that was a very good game. It was a very good game. Well, guys, I got to run. It was fun, and I can't wait to listen to this episode now.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, you were going to do it anyway, right?
I was, yeah. I was actually calling to see when the next Kansas QB was coming out.
Yeah, we've been a little tardy.
Now I know.
But hopefully later tonight.
Okay.
So that's the plan.
Yep.
Tonight or tomorrow morning.
Sounds good.
All right. See you, Kev.
All right. Yep. See ya. Good talking to you, Matt.
Good to talk to you, Kevin.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Kevin Jewell joining the Kansas QB podcast. All right, Matt, what did we miss? Okay, so Kevin said Oregon Trail, Reader Rabbit, which I had forgotten all about. The game in Mrs. Bevis's class with the flying and you shooting the space bar and hitting the aliens and stuff that I can't remember what it was. I pointed out that he missed Number Munchers. You probably never played Number Munchers, did you?
I mean, I think I played it a few times, but no, I was in the 5th grade classroom most of my playing time.
Right. Okay. So what else do we miss?
Okay, so my mom did have SimCity.
SimCity! How did I forget about SimCity? And then SimCity 2000? Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah, so SimCity was great.
Talk about that. Why is that game so good?
Oh man, you can't even put it into words. I mean, there were other civilization building games at that point, but it had just this beautiful art style and detailing where you could see the little cars moving and people would catch on fire and there would be aliens occasionally. And
I feel like there were other civilization building games, especially by the SimCity 2000, but that was like the first one where you would build a town and you would live and die by how well it did and keeping people happy. Yep. Just the whole idea of building a city like that. That was the only game in town doing that. And it was kind of, like I said, I thought it was revolutionary because it came before Age of Empire where you build your little...
Yes, but it came after Civilization, which was in Mr. Spangler's class.
That's true. Yes. Oh, Mr. Spangler. Speaking of which, Matt, you down to help us out with that episode? We're going to talk to Mr. Spangler.
I'd be interested. Okay. I would love that.
We tried to get Angela Bose Johnson to join us. So, hey, if you're out there and you're from the class of 2002, just save me the effort of trying to track down your phone number or contact you on Messenger. Let us know if you want to join us. Talk about Mr. Spangler. Who wouldn't want to talk about Mr. Spangler? He's the best. But another one for Mr. Spangler's class, I think. Do you remember Ants? Or what was it? Was it called Ants?
Oh, yeah. Sim Ants.
Sim Ants. So it's basically Sim City. Yeah. And you had the black ants and the red ants, and you tunnel, and you eventually one would win out.
Yeah.
But that was
there was a shortcut. If you dug down to the bottom, you could find a tunnel into the other anthill.
Yeah, classic. But there was another one from your mom's class.
Yes, I know what you're thinking about. So there was this great game called Odell Down Under, which you played at the coral reef, and you could be any fish in the coral reef, and you would just try to survive eating other fish, plankton. If everybody wanted to be a shark, but you could also create your own fish, change the colors, size. I played so many hours of that.
That was so good. That game was amazing. I remember we'd have like center time, what we call now center time, free time. I don't know what we called it back then, but because it was technically an educational game, which I learned a lot about what sea creatures ate what other sea creatures from this game. Absolutely. So
I learned what a barracuda was. Had no idea before that game.
No, actually, I didn't ever learn that because I once at St. Joe Christian football practice, I was getting really excited and into what we're doing, thinking some kids weren't really hustling, and I yelled out, "You got to run like a barracuda's chasing you!" And Dr. Tim Prawl, dentist here in town who assisted Dad for 14 years, he just started laughing. He was on the ground, and I was like, "What? What are you?" It's like, "You don't even know what a barracuda is?" I was like, "No, but it sounds ferocious." He said, "I bet if you put one behind you right now, it wouldn't do much chasing." I was like, "Oh, okay, well." So I didn't learn about barracudas, but maybe I did. I forgot. But yeah, the whales ate the plankton. But yeah, you're right. Everybody wanted to be the shark.
Yep. But it wasn't as so there's another game that she had that wasn't as popular, but it was, I don't know if you remember this, was Eco Adventures in the Oceans. And you were on a boat and you would go on a map and you would dive down in the locations and see what was underwater. Huh. I played it because I had lots of free time when I was waiting for my mom to be done with school. But it was a not as popular game. Also, though, still I had a lot of fond memories of that one.
Well, that is good. Matt, that has exhausted my list. Can you think of any other games that were specifically...
the other one, Miss Bottom had The Incredible Machine.
The Incredible Machine! I was going to mention that, but I didn't remember it was at school. But yeah, now that you mentioned, Miss Bottom did have it. You're right.
Yep. And so we would sit there, and I feel like our class was always good in that we would all sit around and do things together, which in hindsight at work I hate, but in school was really fun.
Yes. Oh, The Incredible Machine. I remember thinking Tyson was really good at. Speaking of games that Tyson was really good at, how about Minesweeper? He was the champ at Minesweeper. He was so fast, and that was a game that was on all those computers, obviously Solitaire. But yeah, The Incredible Machine. Basically, you had to solve a puzzle. They'd give you a bunch of stuff. You'd have to get a ball from this spot to that spot or something as an objective, and you just put all these little. That's something that now is an app, right? There's so many games now, game apps for your phone where you do something like that because it was addictive, it was fun, and it's something that just happens just right there on the little screen. It doesn't take a lot of graphics processing, so those kinds of games are still really popular.
That reminds me, shout out to Mrs. Winchester, because the first network game I ever played was Hearts in the computer lab. And we used to play that all the time.
Yes, we play Hearts, the card game, the classic card game,
Mm-hmm.
and you could actually network the computers and play. Yes. Okay. Speaking of Mrs. Winchester, a big fan of Miss Vicki Lewis Winchester. She also, I remember playing in her room, and I don't know if she knew we were doing this or not, but Doug Roberts, older brother of Darren Roberts, who's on last week, of the flu game, famous from the flu game, right, that we lost there in our freshman year. Great athlete also. He was also deliciously a nerd, which I love that about Doug. Not only was he a good athlete, but he was also a huge nerd, like me, like us. And there was this text-based game, which was literally like an adventure game that was all in text. There wasn't any graphics whatsoever. It was like a DOS screen. So those nerds that know what I'm talking about, a black background with white text, and you would go to a different sector, and it would tell you what was around, and you could, encounter people, it described them to you. You could create your own character. It was like, really, you had to be a deep fantasy nerd to be into it. But when Doug was describing it to me, again, senior describing it to a freshman, I was in just because the senior was talking to me. But also totally appealed to my sense of fantasy and adventure. Do you remember that? It was a text.
I do. I think we were playing that. I think I was playing that in 7th grade because my brother and Jason Bennett both played it as well. And this game was The Two Towers.
So Lord of the Rings.
And Lord of the Rings, and it was on a server called Angband, and it was incredibly in theme. So you would make a character. Mine was a dwarf warrior, right?
I was an elf.
You would wander about the world. Yep. So it was Douglas Roberts was very involved. He actually became a moderator eventually in Maiar, and then Tim Schmidt, David Schmidt. We all played this game online, and I just remember being shocked because there were people on there from like Sweden, right? It was the first online game I ever played.
Yeah.
Still going today, by the way.
It's still going?
It is still going. Every now and then I check in. My character is long gone. Let's be very clear. And it was never that high character because, again, my personality type, I didn't know what leveling up was in these RPGs. Mm-hmm. And so I would just wander around to try to explore. And I just always stayed at a low level and died a lot.
Yes. Well, Matthew, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to take you on this adventure when I knew we couldn't get Tyler. Tyler would have loved to join us, but and let's be clear too. It's not like Tyler doesn't have time for the podcast now. All of a sudden, he's too good for the podcast. I also don't have time for the podcast. He might even have more time than I do. It's just my time that I have to record isn't matching up with his time to record. And since I'm the one with all the recording equipment, I'm the one that cheats on him with our friend Matt. So Matt, thanks for joining the show. And we never could have done this with Tyler. This is far too nerdy for his taste. I mean, he would have stuck it out like a trooper because he's a good guy. But he would not have told us about his love for a text-based adventure RPG.
I know, which was based on Zork. So let's bring it all back home. And next time we can talk about operating systems and some fun DOS commands.
Oh, yeah, nerds. You wait. We have Matt on the next time when Tyler's too busy. We'll get deeper into the nerd stuff. Well, that does it for things we remember. And as we reach the water world with the incredibly annoying music in the Mario 64 game of life, we are just thrilled that we remembered something. Kansas QB is a production of the Jewel Media Podcasting Network. And before we go, we want to thank Tracy of Tracy Lindley Voiceovers for the Way Too Professional audio. And of course, I would like to thank Matt for clearing time in his busy schedule to talk about 90s video games.
Thanks for having me.
You were ready for the cue. Well, that does it. And that's enough of that. For Matt, I'm Steve, wishing you big fun in your small town.